All right, people. I am here with what will, in fact, be the probably craziest video that you're going to see from me. But this is some theory, right? It's a little bit different than the funnel videos I've been posting, right? So, for context, my name is Noah Burton. I've been in the online sales world for a little bit less than 2 years now. Before that, I was working in the cybersecurity, computer science world for about coming up on 5 years now, soon too. Dang, I'm getting old. But essentially, what I'm going to explain today in this video is why sales and sales processes, businesses, and life overall are computer science, right? Now, you're probably looking at me saying, Noah, what the hell is on the screen right there? What is that thing? Why does it look like that? Why are you on the screen talking about this right now? You're insane. And I would tell you, you're probably right. But if you give me a second to explain everything, you'll start to understand kind of the method of my madness, right? So this thing right here is a program. This is a disassembler called IDA Pro, disassembler, debugger, whatever. It does a bunch of different things, but this right here is essentially a tool that you can use. You can take a program like Google Chrome and you can put it in there. And what this tool does is it opens it up and it shows you the way that it works. It shows you that the way that the engineer made it. So if we zoom in a little bit, these things right here are functions and subfunctions and function trees and blah, 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 blah. These over here are the functions, like kind of in order by name. These things right here, this is, God dang, this is crazy to look at. It's been a minute since I've seen one of these, but this is assembly language, right? This is all stuff being pushed around, moved in memory and stuff. These are XORs. This is basically clearing that out and then moving this value into this memory register. Some stuff that is like, if you don't know it, like you're looking at it and it's like, what the hell is that? But if you're watching this and you're in the business world, it kind of looks similar to this, right? This is a Zapier automation that somebody built to, I didn't look at this before I inserted the screenshot, but they click something on the welcome page, it goes to this Zap and it looks at their form and it analyzes the lead to see if they're their ICP. Then it categorizes their lead, blah, 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 blah. And then it automatically follows up with them later, right? Those two, they kind of look similar a little bit, right? This is just a lot easier to look at than this. So the purpose of what we're doing right now is we want to reverse engineer a successful sales process, business, or life, right? So let's go ahead and look at sales and compare this to computer science, right? So these things right here, the reason why this triangle is here, if I zoom all the way out, this is really big. If we go over here, I've been slowly just expanding on the page. So this is like normal size. If we go look at the font, that's like a regular size font. And I keep getting bigger and bigger. Eventually I just need to delete it and start over, but I couldn't label these. These three right here are the human part of a sale. This is the only part that I'm not really gonna label and compare it to computer science. But these things after it are very comparable to computer science, right? So the first three things that you want to do in a good sale, talking directly to someone, me and you, I'm trying to sell you something. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to establish purpose as the sales rep. I want to establish why we're there. We're going to uncover the protectors of your purpose, right? Which are the motivation, right? And when I say protectors of purpose, I mean things that you want to protect via your purpose, right? So maybe I phrased it wrong, but let's say you're a dad and you have kids, right? That's what you're trying to protect via your purpose. And then what we're going to do is we're going to uncover the enemy of your purpose, right? So we're going to figure out your goal and what your purpose feels to be in life. And then we're going to figure out what motivates you and why you're going after it. And then we're going to uncover the thing that gets in the way of your purpose. And then from there, right, what we're going to do is we're going to start comparing this to computer science. We're going to plant the seed of doubt, i.e. the mutex. In computer science, there's something called a mutex that you can set up within a malicious program. And it's basically like a door, right, in a program. You say, hey, here's this thing called a mutex, and you leave it in a program. And later in the program, you can go back to your mutex because the mutex is there. So what you're going to do, you're going to plant a seed. And the seed that you're going to plant is, okay, you have this thing that's opposing you. I want to plant the seed that you can be successful, right? I want to plant the seed that you can reach your goal. I want to plant the seed of whatever is going to progress our conversation forward, because later I need to come back to that and say, hey, you remember when we agreed that XYZ thing is the reason you can succeed? Or you can flip it and say, come back to your mutex and say, hey, do you remember when we agreed that XYZ thing is the reason why you aren't where you need to be, right? You have your mutex. Then you establish persistence. Persistence is very similar to a mutex, but persistence is more of an environmental thing. This is something that keeps the program itself alive or persistent, per se, in the system forever, right? For as long as it needs to be there, as long as it's set up. And this is how you click a bad link or whatever, and you just can't ever get this virus off your computer. It's because they were good at establishing persistence. So what this looks like in sales is your tie downs. You're establishing persistence via your tie downs. You're saying, okay, well, do you believe that you can do this? Okay, well, if this weren't the case, would you be able to do that? Things like that. You're tying them down and you're establishing persistence in their mind by planting seeds throughout the conversation and tying them down to those seeds, tying them down and saying, hey, man, we're going to hang up this call if you don't make the decision. You're going to think about that. You're going to think about whenever you admitted that this is the reason why you're not there. Stuff like that, right? That's how you establish persistence in somebody's mind so that you can go and call back to it later, right? So in the middle of a sale, what you need to do is you need to beacon out and test connectivity, right? This is something that attackers do on computer systems all the time. And basically, you're asking, do you believe questions? Now, whenever you're beaconing out and you're testing connectivity and an exploitation chain, you're doing it because you need to make sure that your malware is working, your exploit is working. And that's how you can see that it's going to work, right? And your do you believe questions in a sale is how you're going to establish that it's going to work. When you're going through and you're saying, okay, do you believe this can get you to your goal? Do you believe that makes sense? Do you believe that this is the thing that you've been waiting for, right? You're beaconing out and you're testing the connection to the sale, right? You're testing the connection to the method that you're trying to sell them. And then ultimately you take what's command and control, or C2. Now, as the sales rep, whenever you take command and control, you're giving them your pitch, you're giving them whatever, you're taking the power and you're saying, okay, this is my thing. And now I have it. Now I have control of the conversation. And ultimately, this is where, you throw it at them. You give them, you price drop. You say, hey, this is it, buy it. And then from there, you're going to have to exploit the system. So you tell them what the price is. And now you need to objection handle. You need to do all these things. You need to do what you actually came to the call for, which is ultimately tear down and clean up. In between here is you steal the data, you steal whatever you're looking for as an attacker. And what happens in between the objection handling, between getting over fear and all that in the exploitation phase, is your sale. So in between here, malicious attackers, what they'll do is they'll steal from you, they'll take all your stuff, and that would be in the middle. But we're doing a good thing by selling these people what is perceived to help them, right? So in the middle, you're getting your sale, and then you tear down, you clean up. This is onboarding. You go down, you say, hey, man, I'm so happy that you've made this decision to change your life. Let's do this. And then you clean up, you get them onboarded, and you go from there. So sorry, I'm sniffling so much. Let's go ahead, apply the same thought process to your sales process or your business, right? So within a sales process, you need, or business, whatever, I'll continue to say sales process just for simplicity. You need to establish how many functions there are. You need to establish how many sub-functions there are in your business, in your sales process. You need to see how many different avenues things can go down, right? Because all a function is in a computer program is something that does something, right? It's a function. It has a functionality. So within your business, you're going to have a bunch of different functions, and then you're going to have little sub-functions in those functions that make those big functions work, right? Now, right here, you're going to need to know how many return statements bring you back to main, right? Now, I'm going to educate you a little bit. Main is the main function, right? Surprise, surprise. The main function is what kicks off a program and typically is what ends a program. It is what ends a program, but in a roundabout way. And a return statement is something that returns you to a certain point within the program, right? Now, ultimately, you're going to start at main, you want to end at main, and a good, clean, sexy program, you want to end at main. So how many times are you going to have a return statement? How many times are you going to hit something in your function that says, let's go back to main and let's achieve the main function, right? Now, how many useful functions? You need to identify that as well. If I were to go back to that picture I showed you a second ago, there's a bunch of functions in there that really don't do much in the human eye, right? It's moving memory around, it's moving things to make sure environment variables are met correctly. It's just changing and shifting data and storing it in places that really the human mind can't comprehend, right? So you need to figure out how many useful functions there are within your business so that you can reverse engineer from there. Maybe there's a way to reduce the amount of functions that you have to achieve full functionality, right? Maybe within your business, you have a bunch of unuseful functions that you can cut because they don't do anything for the program, right? And all they do is they take up space, they take up memory on your processor and your storage, and they ruin your effectiveness in business. Because ultimately, by having too many unuseful functions, what happens is you start to slow down your system, you start to bog it down. And if you were an attacker, what this would do is it would raise a red flag to the system that you're on, and it would say, hey, this thing's using too much memory. Hey, this thing's using too much computing power. And somebody would investigate that and they'd say, what the hell? Like, why is this thing doing all of this? It's not supposed to be here in the first place. You get deleted. Now your business is gone forever, right? Now, is there any encryption within the program, right? Now, this is more from a reverse engineer's perspective. If you run into encryption, you need to decrypt it. Now, what would encryption be in your business? It may be market bias. It may be something where people think that within your niche, you're a bunch of scammers or something like that, right? Whatever it may be, there's going to be a hurdle that you need to jump over in your business and your marketing process, within your sales process, whatever it may be. You can apply this thought in the way that, I need to overcome a limiting belief in my ICP's mind. And I need to identify if there is a limiting belief. And if there is, I need to figure out how to decrypt that limiting belief, right? Now, are there any loops within your business? What this means, in some programs, there are things called loops. It's exactly what it sounds like. An iteration loop is something where a program, it needs to spell something, right? Is when you would see a loop happen the most, right? So you would have a function and it would iterate through this loop 10 times to spell out 10 letters for one word. And then it would iterate an 11th time, add a space, and then move away from that function, right? Whatever it may be. That's what a loop would do. A loop is something that needs to be repeated a lot of times to accomplish something within the program. Now, this could be good, this could be bad, right? You can also have a loop that decrypts something within your program. So you need to identify if there's anything that you can do within your business more than once, or if there's something you need to do within your business more than once for people to really be hammered home on the idea of what you're talking about right now. In marketing, let's say that your loop is that you need to hire 10 clippers every month to add to this clipping army so that you can iterate through this content engine loop and pushing out mass amounts of shorts to your audience, and basically collectively sharing the idea across as many platforms as you can, right? You need to iterate a loop. It's something that you need to do every time that your business process kicks off from the start. You need to do it. You need this machine to continuously be looping, because without the loop, it's not going to work if you only do it once, right? That's the biggest caveat to loops, is if it doesn't go through all the loops and it skips one or something like that, if you force it to skip a loop, you needed that loop for a reason. The program isn't going to execute now because you've taken the loop out, right? So this, once again, could be something where you need to spend X amount of money on marketing every month. You need X amount of sales reps to be doing X amount of calls every month. Whatever it may be, you have loops in your business. Now, this is kind of, these two go hand in hand. Are the environment variables met? So every program is built for different systems. ultimately, right? They're built for specific systems, and everything can't run on everything. So what programs do is they check their environment variables and make sure that they can run where they're being placed at, right? So for example, if I have a 64-bit program that's meant to run on a 64-bit Windows system, I can't run it on a 32-bit Windows system because it doesn't have the ability to run it. It just doesn't. It's not built for it, right? So your business may not be able to run within your market, right? If you try to place a $15,000 package within a broke market, they probably can't buy it because they don't have $15,000, right? So you need to go and make sure that your environment variables are met. You need to make sure that your sales process, you need to make sure that what you're selling can be sold, right? It can run where you're placing it. And then at the end, you need to test it in a virtual machine. You need to test it in an environment. You need to A/B test. You need to split things. And you need to test it somewhere safely where you're not going to blow the whole budget and just run it all at once, right? Now, in computer science and reverse engineering, testing in a VM is literally baseline. Like, you need to do everything in a VM so that you can keep your main system safe. And in business, what this could look like is, maybe you allocate, $15,000 of an ad budget out of 150,000 so that you can test out a new market and see if this is something that you can actually do within XYZ market, right? Now, you're not running it on your main platform or something like that. Maybe you're launching a separate arm of your business, but you're making sure that in a safe environment, your business can run. Now, what we're going to do lastly is we're going to reverse engineer life, right? Now, what kind of sample is your life, right? Now, in reverse engineering, you call malware a sample, right? Now, that's what I would reverse engineer is malware. It's bad software. It's things that do bad things to your system. And we call them samples. So there's rats, there's, botnets, there's all these different things that are labeled as samples. And what they do is determined by what kind of sample they are, right? And that's your purpose. So you need to determine what kind of purpose you're going to have in life. And you're going to have to establish what kind of output is expected from your life based on what kind of sample you are. So if you say that you are a hard charger and you're going to be this person that is super successful in life, your output that is expected is going to be something super great and very noticeable, right? Now, this could be something, this isn't necessarily a malware sample, but your purpose could be a DDoS, distributed denial of service. And the expected output of a DDoS is a lot of traffic flooding one IP address, one system all at once, so it crashes. Now, if you expect to run a big business, right, then what your expected output should be is a bunch of money and success or whatever, right? Then you need to determine your dependencies. Samples have dependencies. They need to load things in. They need different APIs built into them. They need different programs to run. They need to hook themselves and attach to things so that they can draw resources from it and continue to run, et cetera, et cetera. What are you dependent on? What do you need? What kind of mentor do you need? What kind of education do you need? What kind of upbringing do you need? What kind of friends do you need? What kind of relationships do you need? Like, what do you need to achieve the output that you're expecting because of the purpose that you have in life, right? Now, from here, is there going to be process hollowing, threat injection, hijacking? These are all things that happen within a malicious sample primarily. And these are all different ways that you can go and take dependencies, right? These are different ways that you can go and take resources from something, right? Now, what this looks like is ambition in my mind, right? Whenever a sample goes outside of itself and goes and takes from a good sample, the attacker is saying, okay, I know that you have this good thing, and I'm going to go take that good thing and I'm going to use it for my bad thing, right? Now, what that could be is, maybe you're competing with somebody in college, right? And I don't know, you want to, I think it's like magna cum laude or something like that. Whoever the number one in your class is, maybe you need to go and you need to see how that person's studying. You need to analyze it. You need to break it down and find the inefficiency in it. And then you need to implement that in your own life and beat them, right? Now, this is the part where, my understanding of this, I understood all of software from a malicious standpoint. And that's how I view a lot of things because of that. I think that everything out there is yours to take, right? I think that pretty much every arena that you enter is one that you're supposed to compete in, and there's a way to win. no matter what, right? There's an ethical way to do it, but within the bounds of your arena that you're fighting in, you need to find your way to win. And that's what this is. You need to find your way to win. Then from here, you need to figure out what input is required. You need, in some samples, to input a text string. You need to input a password. You need to input something that makes everything run, right? So what do you need to input, right? What does your life need driven into it for all of that stuff before to start happening? What do you need to insert into your life so that you can go take what you want, and you find what you're dependent on through that, and then you figure out what you want to put out, and then you figure out, hey man, this actually aligns with my purpose. What input do you need to put in to make that whole machine work? Then persistence, talked about it a second ago. Do you want this to be something that lasts? Wherever you're at in life, do you want to establish a legacy because of everything that you've done before this? Because you determine your output, you determine your purpose, you determine all these things. Do you want there to be persistence? Do you want there to be a legacy that is left because of that, right? Now, this right here, enterprise, LAN, PAN. Enterprise would be like the biggest network that you can have. LAN stands for local area network. PAN stands for personal area network. A LAN is like your home. A PAN is you in like your phone or something like that, or like this laptop and me. This is a PAN. Essentially, you want to figure out, not only do you want your legacy to exist for longer than a day, but you also need to understand how big you want it to be, because you can't set out in life with a huge purpose and all these different things and then build a system that can only run in a local area. You can't do it. You can't have a massive impact. You can't leave a crazy legacy. You can't do all of these great things that you think that you can do, that you want to do, without planning from the very beginning. Is this going to be something that touches a lot of people, touches a few people, or touches one person, right? Am I going to be somebody who goes and affects a lot of people, affects, the city, affects my street, or just affects my local friend group? If you can't establish that, then you might as well not do anything, right? Now, I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to summarize this the best way that I can. And there's going to be no call to action in this. I guess there is. On Instagram, my name is Noah Burton, NOAHHBURTON. If you see this schizophrenia on this Miro board and you want this to be the person that runs your sales process, let me know. There's a lot of deeper layers than this. But ultimately, what I want you to see is computers, right? They make decisions based on ones and zeros, right? Let me go ahead and I'll do this real quick on the fly. Computers make decisions based on these. They make binary decisions. So these things right here, these ones and zeros, a 1 is a yes, a 0 is a no, a 1 is a yes, 1 is a yes, 1 is a yes, 0, 0. These are things that make up decisions within computers, right? It's very simple. And ultimately, the human mind is what designed that, right? This is why I think this makes sense. This is why I think this will always be applicable in life, is because computers came from the human mind. And I believe that the human mind is binary at its deepest core level. Everything that you see is a yes or a no. Everything is either good or bad. Everything that you see in life is something that is either a 1 or a 0. And in life, in general, you can reverse engineer anything if you get deep enough into the ones and the zeros, right? You can get deep enough into how you should sell to a specific persona. You can get deep enough into what market your business should crack and how you should market to them. And you can get deep enough into the ones and zeros in life to reverse engineer your success, your family, your marriage, whatever it may be. You can get so granular down to the ones and zeros, to the binary yeses and nos that happen in your brain every day, reverse engineer and create that reality, right? Now, whenever I say create your reality, I am a huge faith person. I'm not saying that you should step outside of what God has for you, but what I am saying is there is a yes or a no that's out there for you to decide if it's correct or incorrect, right? Because what I didn't mention is in computer programming, you can flip those ones and zeros. They aren't going to be completely always 100% the same order. You can change those. You can change the input and the output based on what you do with those ones and zeros. So ultimately, if you take nothing from this video, if you take nothing from this crazy sales theory, life theory that I just gave you, take this, that the ones and zeros are yours to change. Your life is the program. Go in there and create what you want out of it, right? Go and look at where you want to end up, reverse engineer it, and start today. Don't wait.